Hi everyone, this is Lauren. Today's video is going to be on the Viola 1 part of the Mozart Sinfonia Concertante. I figured I'd have us start out with the E flat major scale so we can get our fingers all ready to play this piece and get our intonation in check. So, one thing to remember is the hand frame for this scale. We're going to start on a low 2 on the C string on E flat, and 2 will always stay low through this scale, as well as low first fingers, and then on the D string for A flat, low fourth finger. So this scale is going to sound like this, and we'll do 2 octaves. When you're playing your scales, it's really important to make sure that you are really listening to your intonation. So if you're having trouble hearing some of the intonation in the scale, what I like to do is play along with a drone. So I would put an E flat drone on, and a lot of tuners will have drone options like mine does, or you can look up on YouTube E flat drone and there's lots of options. So this is what that sounds like. I'll play just 1 octave of the scale. So I had to adjust for some of those pitches, and if you need to, it's always okay to linger on notes to adjust and really hear what you're doing. So something else I like to do, in addition to doing scales, is to play the important notes of the scale to get my hands ready for the piece. So that would be the first note of the scale, E flat, the 4th note of the scale, A flat, and the 5th note of the scale, B flat, and then back to E flat. So that would sound like this, and I'll play it with the drone. You can also do this and keep going up the scale. So my A flat was a little bit wobbly, so I'm going to go back and do that higher octave again. And that should get you ready to play in the key of E flat major. Okay, so now that our fingers are really ready to play the Mozart Sinfonia Concertante, I want to talk about syncopation, because there's syncopation all over the place in this piece and any Mozart that you'll play, so it's really important. And to kind of conceptualize syncopation, we'll be playing on the off of the beat. So we'll never be matching up on the big beats of the bar. So 1, 2, 3, and 4 will be playing on the ands every time. And it kind of creates a fun, like, off-kilter feeling, but it can be kind of hard to count. So I'm going to put the metronome on, and I'll be starting in measure 30, so that's 3 bars after letter A. And that'll sound like this. Okay. So, notice that I'm putting a little bit of space and accent on the front of each bow. So, I'm kind of scooping in and letting it ring a little bit, but still letting there be space between each bow. And when we're playing a syncopated rhythm, it's really, really important to make sure that we are internally feeling a subdivided beat, because we aren't playing on the big beats, so we can't rely on that as much. So when I'm playing, I'm feeling in every quarter note 2 eighth notes. So to make sure that we're subdividing, what I like to do is to double the metronome, because then it'll be subdividing for us in eighth notes rather than quarter notes. So I'll demonstrate that really quick with the same spot. So, as you could hear, there was 2 eighth notes for every quarter note, and it was really holding me accountable to make sure I stuck with that the whole time. So that's a really good practice technique that I like to use in tricky rhythmic spots. Just one last thing about that is I'm staying in the middle and upper half part of my bow, and remember to keep that separated sound. Okay, next I actually want to go backwards a little bit and start at letter A, and it will help us kind of put together this little passage here where I just talked about. So at letter A, we have a nice little eighth note motif. And we're joining the cellos there, so it's a pretty cool little bass line that we get to go through. I wanted to note that the bow is off the string, that kind of spiccato bowing. So we're going to stay near the balance point and near the frog. So if you've got the bouncing down, what I like to do next is to put on the metronome again. And then I like to practice the passage, but without putting any fingers down, so I'm just practicing the string crossings. So you're playing open strings where there would normally be fingers, but you're doing the string crossing, so it would be like this. I'll do that one more time. Fingers back in. So now I'll play that whole passage with the metronome, starting from letter A, and I'll go until measure 36. So the important things through that passage, as well as through most of this piece, it's pretty repetitive, is bounciness on those eighth notes, a spiccato style bowing, and then separation on the quarters in the syncopated areas, as well as like at the end of the passage when I went, there's separation on those quarter notes as well. And then on the 16th notes that I played near the end of the passage, we don't want to use too much bow because that will kind of become really soupy. It's kind of overdoing it for us. So little tiny amount of bow, so you can still kind of hear the separation in the 16th note sound. So that's that passage. Next I want to talk about measure 58, the little passage here that is such a cool viola moment. It sounds like this. And I want to talk about the trills. So the trills will be coming from the note above the written note. So the first one is a written E flat, so we'll be going instead of, we'll be starting with our second finger, like that. And then I have two fingering options for the second trill, and that's in measure 60. So you can do in first position, starting on D with your fourth finger. Or you can shift to a second finger for the C and go to second position, and you'd be playing the D for the trill with your third finger, and it's a whole step. And then you would go back to first position for your first finger on the E flat. So I'll play that again in the second position. So it's up to you to pick which fingering you'd like to do. It depends on if your hand can reach the fourth finger here, how comfortable you are in second position, but those are the options there. And one last thing about the trills is that we want to have a lot of energy, especially just on the first trill. So that can come from the bow, actually. So I'll put not a lot of energy and see what it sounds like. See how it kind of floated into it. We really want to have a punch on the trill, so we're gonna sink our bow into the string when we start the trill. So I'll play that passage one more time with lots of energy, and you can play along with me if you want. So if you want to practice a passage that encompasses all the things I've talked about in this video, I would start at the tutti on the second page, at the top of the page. I think that's measure 157. And this encompasses the separated eighth notes, trills, syncopation, and the 16th notes that we talked about. So I'll play through this passage with a metronome for you. So hopefully this has equipped you with lots of tools to start working on this piece. And of course, if you have any questions, you can always email me or text me. So I hope you're excited about this music because I think it's really fun and I'm excited to play it with you all.